Aloha. With this video, I wanted to just share some perspectives that I've had in reference to some of the latest events. The DITRH interview with Owen Benjamin, the Avengers Endgame that's coming out, and coming out today or yesterday, mostly using Captain Marvel as an example of a bigger picture, which is the subconscious undertone of white privilege that's accepted in the mainstream media, and also the persona that is pumped out into the mainstream consciousness that involves like building up certain characters in reality. Like I said in the previous video, for a particular purpose. Like I said in the previous video with Babe Ruth, how Babe Ruth was built up in the world of baseball, or the universe of baseball, as the king of the Sultan of SWAT, the king of everything. He's the king of baseball, meaning, and if baseball is the America's pastime, greatest pastime, then he's the king of America in a way. What does that mean subconsciously to everybody? Well, we already know. I've already gone in great detail about that. But one thing that I have been realizing in reference to that, or in comparison to that same idea, building up an idea, the same way that the Jesus character was personified with a blonde hair, blue-eyed character that you can hang on your wall. The question is, why? What kind of effect does that have on you? Does it have anything to do with white supremacy? Of course, like, you have to ask these questions in order to start to disassemble this stuff. So you have to ask yourself again if they would do, or it would do that with somebody that you consider like a real life savior. Some people who are in that world, the Jesus program is a real life thing for them. If the system would do that with somebody or something as crucial as your God or your Savior and all that other stuff, you think they wouldn't also do that with your children's, like today's versions of your gods and superheroes and all that other stuff? No, of course they would. So this is why Babe Ruth was promoted out there. This is why all of your superheroes are perceived a certain way. Your presidents of the United States, your leaders are perceived a certain way. The other leaders who look differently are perceived another way. Even in the comment in one of the latest videos, somebody was talking about, like, immediately jump to our kind of, I'm paraphrasing of course, comparing our kind of revolution to violence, like, automatically, while other people's, like, oh, that's what it was on the 7 Bomars video. Somebody was defending 7 against the video that I did recently, talking about, like, I'm attacking him or something like that, and I got him all wrong, and he's all about change on a deep level from without violence and without this. And so that's what I'm saying. That's a weapon. That's a weapon. How much violence has been used against us to get this system to where it is today? If violence needed to be used in defense along with your system, along with even in different ways in offense that doesn't involve hurting people initially, like does that seem like, and immediately taking that off the table is immediately taking away a part of your power in some kind of way. And that's what I'm saying. These soft ass sort of like mainstream approaches towards revolution are a controlled opposition. They're out there on purpose. The same way that the so-called white revolution involves like empowering women, and take it a step even further, empowering women against men. So the orchestrated, this is what I'm talking about. Not that empowering women is a bad thing, it's that empowering women through the mainstream media is an orchestrated plan. Same way the LGBT community is pumped out there to take away to water everything down and take away the depths of how, how fucked up things are. So with Captain Marvel, there's something going on with her, because like the people are saying that Brie Larson is one of the key things that people are saying out there in these interviews with the Avengers, because they do all these interviews before the movies, is that Brie Larson is the most protected woman in Hollywood right now, or person in Hollywood right now. And I was like, what the fuck, why? And then you see these interviews and you listen to her and you can see that she's like the embodiment of just like destructive feminism, like that out of balance version of femininity that is anti-masculinity. And she's like heavily, she's like super pro, like mainstream woman thing, that whole thing. She's the embodiment of the mainstream white woman. And what I'm saying, and that's why nobody really likes her, because she's this arrogant, sort of totally disconnected from reality individual who like really thinks that she's a superhero, but in politics. And what I'm saying is that all this is on purpose. They picked her for a reason. When they hire these actors, they don't just hire actors to play the role in the movie. They hire actors to play the roles after the movies, outside of the movies. This is why these actors are hired. Like I said in previous videos, these individuals are hired. They're given millions and millions and millions of dollars for movies, not because they're super, super, super talented. They're given millions and millions of dollars because that's hush money. Because the Hollywood and the system overall, the establishment knows that these individuals that they put out there, that's a liability, because the people that they put out there are like in front of masses of people. They get influenced. They become influential. So the people that are put out there in Hollywood are going to be put in your face to either be quiet or to be heavily influential. They're gonna be paid. So that's what I'm saying. If Hollywood's gonna put anybody out there to be influential, it's going to be an individual that's going to be influential in reference to the system. This is why she's the exception to the rule of actors who don't say anything. Like I said in previous videos, these individuals are paid to not say something, and that is the when they don't say anything, that they're actually saying that they agree with the program that they represent. So that's how they are saying something. Now, when you do have a character like Brie Larson, who just has diarrhea at the mouth of mainstream white privilege, then you have to ask yourself, is that an accident? Of course not. This is on purpose. She's a young, dumb, privileged white woman who has no idea what's going on in reality, and she has a platform as a superhero. Of course she's going to lose her shit and just be like, oh yeah, I'm this and I'm that, and everybody else is da 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 da. Just like all this fake, she's like the embodiment of this fake empowerment, women's empowerment movement out there. There's just people just like women just screaming at the top of their lungs like, men destroyed everything. She just believes all that shit, believes everything. She's like a news anchor from Fox and CNN and all in one in Hollywood. If the news anchors all had a baby with Hollywood, she would be that character. So yeah, basically one thing I was saying earlier or yesterday is that the white woman as a whole, her persona, her character, how she's been built up in society as a control measure. That woman, because I speak a lot about, you know, the masculinity, the white man in society, like pawned off as the king. But the queen that's out there is easily the white woman. And what I've been saying recently is that just the same way that they built up Babe Ruth and they built up all of this, they had to project this somebody else out there, something else out there. Babe Ruth, the privilege, the identity, the persona. So the discord between the Avengers also makes their characters in real life seem more real. Her being so fake makes the other Avengers seem more real. And that's another perk to having such a privileged, like, idiot out there just bumbling out of her mouth just all this garbage that is promoted by the system. So, in another way to put it is that, like I said, she is the Babe Ruth of society, of like the masses. She, like, the white woman is the Babe Ruth of, there's a better word than humanity, like humanity, like of the beings in our consciousness. She is pumped out there to be subconsciously a figurehead similar to Jesus. She's the savior of the Avengers, meaning she's the savior of the superheroes of humanity. So she's like the super Avenger. She has she's like the most powerful one. She's even more powerful. Just a regular white woman who got powers from an explosion on Earth is now more powerful than God. So the science that created that power is equivalent to the science that can create gods. If she's more powerful than Thor, then she's more powerful than the god of thunder. So that whole little argument, that little discord that they keep playing between Thor and Don Cheadle and Captain Marvel, that whole thing, her, like, this is what it's saying subconsciously to you. It's also saying, like, the same thing, the same thing that you're looking at right now. What is this saying to you? Well, people pay attention. They're looking obviously at the colors. What do those colors represent? So those colors represent royalty, the red and the blue. This has been broken down many different times, in different ways. I don't have to go into it too much, but you can see this is what this stuff really means. So this is why these individuals have to have so many different, like, movie universes. Like, you have the M. Night Shyamalan universe with the superhero characters of Bruce Willis, Samuel Jackson, and where the other dude is from Split. Like, those are superheroes. That's a universe. You have the Marvel universe, the DC universe, and the same even in the Star Wars universe. The Star Wars universe is also pumping out these privileged agendas, but excuse me. No, in the Star Wars universe, but even in the Star Trek universe. Now, Star Trek is or not. Yeah, you can see it in the Star Trek universe, but the X-Men universe this is the thing. The X-Men universe is now going to space now, and in the future videos you can see this. The X-Men are now going to space, so that's within the Marvel universe as well. But you can see this whole merging of universes, like the heliocentric universe, which is accepted as real life. Well, real life in the fairy tale universes is the same thing. It's based upon the DC universe, the M. Night Shyamalan universe, the Marvel universe. These are all universes that are their blueprint is based upon the heliocentric universe. So they also add credibility to the heliocentric. This is all known, obviously, for people. Like, this is why these movies are made. to pump the old agendas. So in this agenda, you have the RWS agenda. Obviously, like your superheroes, your gods. Who are they? What do they look like? They look like all the people that are in the White House. You have the political agendas. Obviously, watch the Captain Marvel movie and see how like feminist that movie gets. Like mainstream feminism. It's disgusting how stupid it is. You have just like these are just like plain ass people. Just like these individuals are supposed to be the plainest, sort of empty-minded, not having any kind of real connection to anything kind of people. That's on purpose. So I'm gonna go see the end game today. I think, hopefully, if I have enough time. Like I said, they put a lot of stuff in these movies to talk to the subconscious. They're speaking, this system is, 10, 20 years ahead of the game, talking to your kids, from mind controlling your kids. And if we don't start disassembling it now, then we won't be able to get ahead of the curve for our kids and our grandkids and so on and so forth. Because right now, they don't have anywhere to put this information, because children are more at that time they're in school, so they're having a hard enough time having to deal with school and the parents and all that other shit. So it's our responsibility for the people who are aware of this information to keep that in mind. Otherwise, like, what the hell are you here for? Like the indigenous ancestors would always talk about, and they would say, like, we are responsible for the next 7 generations right now, in this moment. If you're not responsible for the next seven like actively responsible for the next seven generations, then you're really in this space the same way, kind of like white people are in the system of racism and white supremacy. You're really just only in it for yourself. It's just, you're empty. It's nothing. It's like the empire of the Western Empire, the colonial empire. Is it really for the people? No, it's for itself. At the expense of the people, at the expense of the nature, at the expense of the air, the water, the earth, even the consciousness, all the resources, the art, your culture, your history, your people. Like everything, it doesn't matter. It's all about what's happening right now in this establishment. That's the only thing that the people and that the people from that establishment care about. They're totally lost, totally empty, totally dense, have no substance, are extremely proud of themselves, have this guilt complex that will not allow them to even entertain anything, the infrastructure of why things are the way they are. They have this savior complex where the savior complex is so huge in their conscious and their subconscious reality that it clouds you even unveiling the reality that they're not the saviors. So when they've been conditioned through generations upon generations through programs like the Blonde Hair, Blue Eyed Jesus program, to tell them that they are gods, that they are the best, they are the peak of humanity. So think about this. They had the biggest religion telling them that they are the best. They are the chosen people. This is what happened. White people are the chosen people of humanity in the eyes of racism, white supremacy, that colonial establishment, the new world. In the new world, in the technology world, in the Western world, so-called white people are the chosen people against everybody else. This is how they are the chosen people. They are the embodiment of God. The most accepted image of God is the blonde hair, blue-eyed Jesus person around the world. The embodiment of that individual is going to have an inherent privilege that other people do not have. They're going to have an inherent deflection program that other people do not have. They are going to have an inherent defense mechanism, subconsciously and consciously, that other people do not have. That is white privilege. They have been placed up as the most beautiful, the most intelligent in like when they have when they have the jobs, they have like the degree programs, when they're in all your commercials, when they're in the bikinis, in the porn industry, when they're on the postcards or posters, and they're in your love, your romance movies, your drama movies, like everything. This is how the system, like when they pump white women into the sexual programming. That's a direct response to the reality of genetic annihilation. So this is already known for people who don't know. Research Dr. Francis Krauss Welsing and Neely Fuller Jr. In White Genetic Annihilation. Quick breakdown is that obviously if a black man or a black woman has sex with a white man or a white woman, like, and they have a baby, that baby will be black or brown. The genetic coding of the black parent will completely overtake the white genes. And scientifically speaking, the white genes are a recessive gene, meaning that they're secondary. They will naturally submit to the deeper, more deeply rooted genes, whatever that means. I don't know. Only thing that means is that's like a definite thing. It's a definite thing that happens that so-called white people don't want you to know about. This is why they are spending billions and billions of dollars studying melanin, won't release those studies, won't tell you about those real studies, and won't tell you why they're making those studies. So this is comparable to Owen Benjamin in the latest live stream that he did with DITRH, saying, quote, "I can't talk bad about the British Empire," and quote, "India is better than under British rule." So like this is the mentality of white supremacy. It's like, yeah, we did some fucked up things, but you guys are better off. Because why? Because evolution led us up to this moment. Like, it all happened on purpose, right, guys? Like evolution led us up to this intellectual peak that we're at right now, called Western civilization. And India's kind of better off. It's it's definitely better off under British rule. See, but those idiotic, entitled, pompous assholes like Owen Benjamin, when they give you that quick little like brush away sort of like, oh yeah, that shit doesn't matter. They're not going to talk about the British Empire starving the Indian people. They're not going to talk about I think it was the Bengal famine. Like all those, I can't remember how many people died. Like hundreds of people died. Maybe even thousands of people died in the Bengal British famine. I think that's what it was called. Let me just look at it right now while I'm here. The Bengal British famine. So this is the Bengal British famine the Bengal famine of 1770. Like this image says, it was the first of several British engineered severe famines in the Bengal province of India during the British rule. Estimated 10 million people. 10 million people died in the famine because East India Company wanted profits. So this is the British-owned orchestrated famine that these totally separated, totally entitled, privileged pieces of shit. Like I said, how many people were watching that live stream? And how this is about influence. Like I said, these individuals are paid millions of dollars to keep their mouths shut. So other people are paid millions of dollars and have millions of followers and hundreds of thousands of followers to talk about something, but talk about something that of what kind of nature? Of a nature that keeps people enslaved. So when Owen Benjamin just writes off the colonization of India, one of the most populated nations in the entire world right now, he's basically saying like, fuck your history. We're right. We're cool. We took your shit over, but it was for your better. You guys were just fucking fucked up without us. And then so he's giving the approval for the starvation of 10 million people. So a little pissant like Owen Benjamin with his little funky ass following on YouTube is just shitting all over the souls of 10 million people just to protect his British Empire. And he says shit like, I can't talk. This is what fucking white people say. This is what they embody when they don't talk about this shit. He literally said in there, I can't talk bad about the British Empire. Some things are just so bad, I can't even talk about them. And he says, like the stuff in eugenics. So they take that, like, they take the whole colonial storyline. And so he said that last part, he said that in the presence of DITRH. He said the other two things, like about the British Empire, when DITRH wasn't there. But DITRH was obviously watching the live stream, and so he approves of that. So the same way Owen Benjamin approves of not looking at the Bengal famine and the fucked up parts of the British Empire and colonialism, DITRH does the same thing with Owen Benjamin. He's like, oh yeah, he's talking about flat earth. So that's okay. It doesn't matter if he's like totally discrediting the attention that needs to go towards, millions of people being taken out systematically by the institution that's still alive today. That doesn't matter. Let's get more numbers for flat earth, buddies. How about that? Let's be cool about what's going on, because it doesn't matter that he's shitting all over like what other people even in the flat earth community are talking about. Let's just get behind him because he's got celebrity, huh? Let's not share any of their information. This is what's happening right now in Hollywood. So flat earth is a microcosm of, Hollywood. It's a microcosm of the macrocosm. You have these empty ass, not having any kind of, all they have is the information off the internet. The information off their internet is their culture. The truther community, the flat earth community, has become people's culture. They've made it into something that is unquestionable. They can't, it's become like this synthetic culture that is an extension of the system of racism, white supremacy, of colonialism, the truther community, the new age community, all these conspiracy communities, conscious communities. These are all in many different ways extensions of the system of racism, white supremacy. And like I said, that Owen Benjamin quote that I just said, that's a good example of it. When they say, yeah, like I said, these people are being followed. These videos are going to be on the internet forever. Or, you know what I mean. But these statements, these belief systems are going to be available for people for a long time. And when you have people like DITRH who are just, being cool with it, I think it was planned that Owen Benjamin referenced colonialism in the beginning, but didn't really go into it later on. It's to make it like it's not a big deal. And then when you have a person like DITRH who is in the community of people who do talk about that stuff, then they're just saying, oh yeah, well, it really isn't that important. The only thing is the nut, like he said, like DITRH said in there, the nuts and bolts of flat earth. The science is just cool for them. That's cool. Because they have nothing invested in the human story. Because why? Because the human story that has been pumped for them has been in their favor. So the human story, like our story, is not it's not at all something that is important to them. It doesn't matter. Why? Because they already have the human story. Why would you want to change the human story as a white person if the human story that is accepted in society today is benefiting your people? Why would you want to change anything? You wouldn't want to change anything in the system if the system is already benefiting you. If it works for you, then why would you want to change it? No, you wouldn't want to change it. So anything, any kind of truth that comes up in society that threatens you, and that has the power to threaten that comfort, that community, that privilege that you have, anything that has the power to threaten that privilege, you will consciously and subconsciously, this is what I'm saying for the people you think that are really cool, they are at least subconsciously defending that system. You will defend that system at least subconsciously if you don't educate yourself on the depths of the system. If you don't educate yourselves on the depths of the system, then you will not educate yourself on the depths of who and what you are. This is why I'm saying it's so important to go into these stories. See, the reason why Flat Earth is focused so much on the nuts and bolts, like the science of Flat Earth, is because Flat Earth overall is about the power. And if you keep people focusing on the nuts and bolts of a scientific power, then you'll keep people distracted from the nuts and bolts of a spiritual power, of a deeper power, a cultural power, a power that gets to the power beneath the illusions that come along within heliocentrism and so on and so forth. See, that was a power move to say the British rule around the world doesn't really matter. So I'm just not going to talk about it. I'm heavily influential. I am as influential as Joe Rogan. And I'm going to talk to one of the biggest flat earth channels out there. And I'm going to totally dismiss colonialism. I'm going to, they actually did that. It makes me think even more so that they are aware of what, channels like mine. I don't know, of any other channel that's really like mine, but channels like this in the so-called flat earth community that are talking about that story, that are bringing that story to the surface with the gusto that I'm bringing on this channel. I don't think anybody's really doing that, but people like Owen Benjamin, it seems like they are aware that question, that reality exists, and that was a way of combating it, like fighting it, like saying, oh yeah, that doesn't matter. The power doesn't matter. It's just the coolness of the story. Let's just talk about what's cool, how they lied. So Owen Benjamin is to he's there to dude perfectify, dude perfect, turn this into something really cool. Turn it into a mainstream sort of thing that can just be packaged. Package it up, Owen Benjamin. Package Flat Earth up. DITRH, put a pretty little bow on it, Joe Rogan and Alex Jones. Sell it to the people so in a way that nobody's gonna ask any questions. See, this is why it's so important to really hold these individuals accountable for the things that they say and what they do. Their ignorance is dangerous. Their ignorance is fucking deadly, okay? This is what I'm saying right now. The ignorance of white people is deadly and dangerous on a massive scale, on a collective scale. White privilege is killing people. RWS is a system that's still alive today, that never lowered its war flags. It's still alive today, and it's responsible for the killing of millions and millions and millions of people. And people in the so-called truther community won't say a fucking word about it. In fact, they will defend the people who are trying to deflect the information from being shared. They will defend and promote. DITRH is promoting Owen Benjamin even today. After he watched that full live stream, he's okay with distracting you from the colonial powers directly relating to flat earth. He's okay with saying that, you know, and I'm not saying I'm not saying that you have to agree with everything Owen Benjamin is saying just because, you know, what I know he's just using Owen Benjamin to share more information about flat earth. That's what they're saying, giving them the benefit of the doubt that they are not aware of what they're doing. But I'm saying what I'm saying is that DITRH is not that stupid. So if they're not that stupid, then they are at least somewhat aware of their own privilege and their own hand in distracting you from the deeper storyline. So that's what I'm saying. They are aware of it. If you're not that stupid, then that means you are conscious of what the fuck you're doing, at least in some kind of way. So these individuals who are conscious of what they are doing are conscious of distracting you from shit like you're looking at right now. And you know why they could do that? Because they're the most loved people out there. They can make all the mistakes in the world. That's why, like Brie Larson, Captain fucking Marvel, one of the most privileged assholes out there. How could you even say? How could any? What does it mean when people in Hollywood say, and even outside of Hollywood say, that Brie Larson is the most protected woman or protected person in Hollywood right now? What does that mean? That means that the entire system is manipulating the way people think about a particular person. What's the biggest issue in that sentence? The manipulation of the way you think. Do we have that privilege? If Brie Larson was Nia Long, would she be protected? Fuck no. Nia Long would be destroyed in Hollywood if she was saying what Brie Larson is saying right now. Nia Long would be like, there is no protection for non-white people in that system. If you are not white and you fuck up in Hollywood and you have all that privilege, if they paid all that shit to you, they don't even see you as human in many different ways. So if you fuck up and you're already like on their team, they will fucking destroy you. Look at what happened to Bill Cosby and R. Kelly and O.J. Simpson and Michael Jackson. Look at what they're doing to Prince and all that other stuff. This is not to defend any of these individuals. I don't know their stories. I don't know what's true and what's not true. All I'm saying is that I'm bringing light to the reality that happens and is happening right now. Is there like... Oh yeah, Don Cheadle is the most protected man in Hollywood right now. You wouldn't. It's absurd to even hear that because you know Hollywood doesn't give a fuck about Don Cheadle. It doesn't give a fuck about Chadwick Boseman and all that other shit. And they're still being protected because they're Hollywood. But as soon as they get personal, like once they step outside of their Hollywood, their SAG card. Once they stop, swiping that SAG card and start swiping their black card, and once you start swiping that black card, your ass is fucking done. You're done. But Brie Larson, she can swipe her American Express. She can swipe her colonialism. Owen Benjamin can swipe that. I don't give a fuck about the Bengal famine. I don't give a fuck about people talking about the colonial empire. That's my shit. I'm cool with that. I can't talk about, this is what he said, I can't talk about eugenics. This is another thing that's part of it. They play like I'm so nice, I'm so cool, I'm so sensitive, I'm so deeply tuned into what's going on. I care so much about you that I will also choose about things to not talk about for your benefit. So he says on his live stream, what did he say on there? Like I said, some things, he said, quote, some things are just so bad I can't even talk about them, like the stuff in eugenics. And he goes on and on and on. But that's as close as you'll get to the so-called human story. But him mentioning that. And what does that mean? That's a total dismissal. He dismisses what all that stuff even means, and when you hide it underneath an hour and a half of live stream, it basically doesn't exist anymore. So they play this like we're such nice people and we have such good things, why can't you talk about eugenics? Why Why that? Of all things, you can't talk about that. You can talk about everything else. You can talk about all this other shit that's out there, but you know, it makes you feel bad. That's what he's saying. It's like, oh, I just can't talk about that stuff. It's just, oh, let's talk about something cooler. You know, there's something that's not going to be like, you know. So that's the game that's being played right now. It's fucking sick. It's disgusting. But it's accepted. The same way he says, I can't talk about the British Empire. I can't talk about colonial rule. Can't talk about the Bengal famine. I can't talk about the British Empire. That's meaning he's saying, I'm here specifically to talk about this. The shit that distracts you from that. He can't talk about it. Just the same way athletes can't talk about anything. Just the same way Hollywood actors can't talk about anything. He's using his comedian platform to make it seem like he's talking about the things he shouldn't talk about. That's why he's so successful in the so-called truther community, is because white people are thinking, the ones who are on his bear team, and even like, including DRTRH and all the people who are staying quiet about following Owen Benjamin, they really fucking love this dude, but they don't want to follow him because he's a loose cannon, and the shit that I'm talking about, they're also aware of it, but they won't say anything. Like DITRH, he's not going to say anything bad about Owen Benjamin. He's not going to, but he knows he has a lot of disagreements about Owen Benjamin, but he won't say anything. Why? Because they're cool. They're tight like that. Because the bigger storyline is what matters. So they won't talk about stories that are beneficial to you, because the stories that are beneficial to you are not beneficial to them. And as long as there's more people with influence that are on that team, you will continue to be the one that they don't talk about. They don't give a fuck about you. But as soon as you get a little more power, as soon as you get a little more influence, then you'll become more important in their storyline. This is why when the Beyond the Curve documentary came out, and that group of people who were accepted as like super smart and all this other stuff were seen as fucking fools on Netflix, that's when they came back on Bro Sanchez's live stream and started talking about, oh yeah, well, we're this and we're that, because they had to defend themselves. Now you're fucking important. Now now they need you. But when they didn't need you, they just said, fuck you. Your stories don't matter. Your platforms don't matter. Your perspectives don't matter. We matter because we have white Hollywood on our side. We have the biggest influencers on our side. So that's what I'm saying, the difference between attention and intention. They're all about the attention. They think the attention is the real power, like the mainstream media. They have no real intention, which means they're super powerless. They have no power. They're only there. Their only power is the illusion of the old power. Like I said, in the so-called truther community, you have no real truth. You only have truth or truthful information in comparison to lies. That's what the truther community, here's your definition of the truther community. The truther community is not built up of truth. The truther community, the more accurate way to define the truther community is, the truther community is filled up of a whole bunch of information and people regurgitating information that isn't just truthful information in response to lies. It's not the truth, because the truth is more encompassing than the bullshit lies that are put out by the system. It's not about that. It might be step one to getting to the deeper truth of who and what you are. Step one is definitely like unveiling and removing all these lies and that bullshit. Step one, that is definitely part of, if not the biggest part of step one. But step one is not, the truth is not about step one. You know, everything is not about step one. Step one is okay for people with a short attention span and people who have no depth. People who, are only about themselves. You can stay on step one. It's like I've said in the previous videos, it's like staying in the waiting room. People that are actually critically thinking are not going to stick around in the waiting room waiting for the mainstream media to make their moves. No, you can research and talk about what you're doing and talk about what's going on and do something that has nothing to do with the mainstream media. You can make your moves without even, but you can see that in comparison to what the truther community is, specifically the flat earth community, what the fuck are they doing? That every move that they make is in and around the mainstream media. It's all about the mainstream media. So they don't have any moves of their own because they don't have any sense of self. This is why so-called white people in the flat earth community, in the conscious community, the new age community, are always following things. They're always following, like in the new age community, they're following, brown people. Not black people, brown people. Brown people and like Indian gurus and shit. Like white people are all about Indian gurus. Why? And any kind of guru. Specifically, I'll just use Indian gurus because, and why is that a thing? Because the gurus are all about, like I've said, it's all about, like, it's focusing on the self. What's another word for self? The micro. That's why. That's why the New Age is such an attractive thing to so-called white people. The same way Owen Benjamin is such an attractive thing to so-called white people. The same way Flat Earth is such an attractive thing to so-called white people. Because it's a distraction. It's a distraction from the macro if you sell it from the perspective of the micro, which is what white people, our so-called white people, are doing in the flat earth community. They're selling it. The Owen Benjamin, like I said, if a black person said, just imagine if anybody else other than a white person said, India is better off under British rule, oh my fucking God, everything would be taken away from them. But you can see the privilege that Owen Benjamin has to actually, and white people as a whole have, to say something like that. You see what I'm saying now? And well, like I said, just the same way, his followers are going to believe in some kind of way, in some kind of percentage, and be cool with that. They have to be cool with that, what he said. The same way his viewers have to do that. The flat earth viewers who follow DITRH are also going to have to do that in some kind of way, because DITRH is on the same page as him. They're all buddies. This is that whole thing, and you can see how DITRH tried to play, cool. He tried to be like Owen Benjamin. He started talking about, he kept like doing a lot of gay jokes and Jewish jokes like that. It's a fucking kid, man. Like I said in previous videos, you have kids following kids, teenagers at best, trying to be cool like the cool kid. It's exactly what whatever the fuck his name was from DITRH, Dave Weiss, yeah, other dude's Bob. So yeah, Dave. You can see he's just like, was like, oh yeah, if you do this, you're gay or something like that. Just gay jokes and Jewish jokes, and he was playing that like, it's weak, it's stupid as hell. It's just like, it's very exposing, or it's very revealing. But you see what I'm saying? You see where these people's motives are. They're all about how they look, how they appear. They don't give a shit about the content or the intent. That's not a thing. The content, the information, and the intention behind that information is basically non-existent, because it's all about the way the commercial looks. It's all about the flat earth community promoted by so-called white people is basically like the commercial for what flat earth could be. And everybody's putting in all this money. These are all the people who are supporting this flat earth basic shit. They're putting all this money into what they think is the movie of flat earth. But since they're putting it into the Western version of what flat earth actually means, they're putting it into the colonial perspective of flat earth. All their attention, all that information, since people are putting all that shit into the Owen Benjamin version of flat earth, what they're doing is they're taking away all the power away from the flat earth that exposes the system. So they're putting all this money, investing all this money and energy into basically like the commercial of flat earth. when they think that the flat Earth is like a series, like an Avengers, a Marvel universe. That's what's happening. This is, and I'll end it on this. The truther community, the flat earth community, the new age community, what the people who are involved in those communities are doing is that they're investing all their time, their work, their effort, their information, their thought, everything is being pumped into this production. And it's a film set. It's like a production film set. They've been putting in years. The flat earth community has been, on the YouTube flat earth production set for the last almost 4 years now. And what are they doing? They don't know. They don't know what movie they're producing, but they're just playing the roles that they think that they should be playing. And they keep putting these ideas out there, and these new characters, these new actors every now and again. It was like B.O.B. and Kyrie Irving and Shaq and Tila Tequila and all these people who are put into this movie set, and you're like, yeah, you guys are making a movie, right? Good job, right? Like, okay, well, what movie are you making? Oh, we're making, no, sit your ass down. 4 or 5 years later, whenever the mainstream media comes in and says, oh, no, sit your ass down. You're not making a movie. We're making a movie. And it's not a movie. It's a commercial. It's a commercial. You guys made a commercial. So now we're going to produce the real movie. This is what the movie is. So all the regular ass people and all the orchestrated, controlled demolition people and all the hired actors and all that other stuff we've been talking about flat earth for the last 3-4 years and all that other stuff. When the mainstream media starts to put its production out there, it's going to make everything else look silly. Why? Because it was already silly. They were never talking about what the system was going to not talk about. Let me say that again. They were already not talking about what the system was going to not talk about. So they did the work that the system was not going to do in the first place. So they set up the reason why the flat earth needs to be focused on the physics, the science of flat earth, is because the system is going to play that game. It's going to sell that back to the individual. So it needed to promote, YouTube needed to promote that shallow version of flat earth so it could be repackaged later on in a universal production company style and sold back to the people. That would be the real movie, the David Attenborough narrated flat earth documentary. So I'll end it on that. That was basically a longer version of what I was saying, but it was just like just keep in mind, like what I said, people, all this information, all the people, even including and especially the interview with DRTRH and Owen Benjamin as an example of all the communities, it's designed to keep you at a certain level. And in the moment, in the interview, you think, oh yeah, we're getting smarter. There's 5,000 people in the live stream right now. Things are changing. They're not. If they are, they're changing for the worse. Because you have assholes like Owen Benjamin who are saying, like, the Bengal famine doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's better under British rule. Fuck you. We're better now than we were before. So just deal with what we have now and just make what we have now better. Make the British Empire of today better. Make the British Empire great again. Make the British Empire great again is basically what Owen Benjamin was saying and what DRTRH is okay with and what the so-called flat earth community is saying overall when it approaches what it's approaching, this whole storyline, the way it's approaching it. It's ridiculous. So let me check this real quick before I close this one out, because okay, yeah. Oh, so one more thing and I'll end it on this. So like I said, the Owen Benjamin, this ties into like him not saying that he doesn't want to talk about eugenics, and that, other people's eyes, that makes him look like a good guy, right? That makes him look like He's like caring for the people. It's a nice thing for him to do that. Yeah, nobody wants to hear about that. Why? It's such a they don't talk about that stuff on television, so why would you even bring it up? It doesn't make any sense. We let's just talk about what's comfortable for us. How about that? So that's what happened. So they say stuff like, I can't talk bad about the British Empire. India is better under British rule. Some things are just too bad. I can't even talk about them, like the stuff in eugenics. What that does, it creates a persona of like them caring for you, but it also creates this idea that not being like the bad guys, like being somebody who somewhat cares, is good enough. So not being shitty is good enough to them. But it's not good enough for us, because that's what's been happening when we were being lynched, when our babies were being fed to alligators. That's what they were saying back then. They were saying, oh, we're not like them. We're the nice ones. That's not good enough, because you're still being privileged every single fucking day. Why aren't your babies being fed to alligators? Why aren't you being lynched? That's the whole fucking point. It's not that you're cool. It's not a personal. Don't take this personal and turn yourself into a fucking victim. We're talking about how we have been victimized as a people by the establishment, and now you want to be a victim? This is what white people are saying when they say, I'm not one of them. I'm not. That's their biggest defense mechanism now. When they're saying, I'm not one of them. I'm like you. We're all the same. We're nice. We're human. I'm not like them. So they're still controlling the dialogue. What they're saying is that I'm not like you. We're like this. Me and you, we're together. We're the same. We're not like them. They're shapeshifters. They're reptilian minded. They're this and that. So this is another way of controlling the dialogue again. When they take that victimized perspective, they say, I'm not like them. I'm like you, and we're all the same. So they're not just saying I'm not like them. They're saying also I'm not like them, but I'm also not like you. And when they're saying I'm not like them, I'm like you, they're saying they know what you are. They know who you are. They know what you're about. And they're also saying that what you're about is the same thing that you're about. Is the same thing that they're about. But they don't know who the fuck they are or what they are. And they sure as hell don't know what you're about. But they know what you shouldn't be about. That's another thing. You shouldn't be talking about racism. You shouldn't be talking about eugenics. You shouldn't be talking about the power. You should be talking about the nuts and bolts of flat earth. You shouldn't be. You can see DRTRH didn't name any other channels other than the main dialogue. He didn't mention Bro Sanchez, didn't mention any other so-called black flat earth channels. That it was a white person's flat earth interview. Period. That's the way so-called white people think flat earth should be about. And like I said, like they put your one black friend in your movie or in your interview or something. That was their way of, when they said, I can't talk about, eugenics. But I can say that, the British rule over India was totally okay. That was like dude perfect. It's fucking cool. Dude perfect. They did it. The British Empire, made a hole in one from, the top of a mountain when they took over India. So be grateful, Indian bitches. Just be cool with it. Oh, fucking famine. Indians and the Native Americans and the indigenous people in the Americas. Fuck you. Fuck, like Trail of Tears. Oh, look at you now, man. You got a fucking phone. Indians in India, look at them now. They got Bollywood. They're totally way better with underneath. After the genocide. Just like the Native Americans, just like the indigenous people in the Americas. Way better off, totally better off after the genocide, after the mind control, after the land grabs, after the destruction of their culture, after feeding their babies to alligators, after Jim Crow law, after redlining, after the head right system, after the Homestead Act. Everything was better off after that. And you need to be thanking the fucking British Empire, you fucking peasants. White people are the ones who gave you everything that you love and cherish today. You need to be fucking thankful and grateful to them. Famine, genocide, who the fuck do you think you are? You better not say one fucking word about that. Be grateful for it. That's what Owen Benjamin is saying. If somebody went into that interview, into that live stream and said something about the Bengal famine and how just totally insensitive and ignorant his perspective was on the British Empire, like even DRTRH and all the other people who were talking about all this other shit and never mentioning the British Empire, the same way. At least Owen Benjamin verbalized those words and said, like, I just can't talk about it. At least he said those words, because so-called white people in the flat earth community and truther community, they won't even say those words. They will just hide behind, this is what people in the truther community are doing. They're hiding behind the uploads. They're hiding behind all the other storylines. They're waiting for more distractive storylines to come out so they don't talk about this storyline. This is why so-called white people are so invested in the mainstream storylines, because there's all this work to be done on their own that is more important and more crucial to them, but it takes more work. It takes inner work. And it takes the work of challenging what they have been comfortable with for so long. And that's the bigger challenge with so-called white people. It's actually bigger than change. Before you even can entertain the idea of changing yourself, you have to be open to the idea of changing, of something in society needing to change. But people are so comfortable, white people in particular are so comfortable with it. They don't think they need to change in any kind of way, because they don't think society needs to change. This is why things overall will not change, because people like white people, like I said, it's a psychology. If they don't think anything needs to change, subconsciously, energetically in the ethers, they are also pumping out that system of, everything is okay, it's cool. We got NBA, NBA basketball. We got the NBA, the MLB, the NFL, the NHL. We got all these, great things in our society today. Nothing needs to change. And if something needs to change, it doesn't need to be, crazy. Come on. We don't need to talk about the British Empire. What do you mean? I'm not going to talk about that. Another thing to really keep in mind before I close this out, all the shit that Owen Benjamin talks about, he talks about the Jews. He talks about everything. He's a pretty controversial individual out there. Think about this and keep this in mind, and I'll end this on this. Let me finish before I get. Did I finish that? Praising themselves and accepting concessions. Okay, so people who know what I just said in reference to the last thing, people who know about, the way the truther community is existing right now in reference to having like a white people skin suit on it. What they're doing is they're maintaining a lack of movement. It's by praising themselves and accepting the concessions of the system, they're maintaining a lack of movement. So accepting the concessions of privilege, of supremacy that comes as a result of the system of racism and white supremacy. They're accepting those concessions and praising themselves. So Owen Benjamin having DITRH is like their way of praising their ignorant version of flat earth. That's how they're praising themselves. What I'm saying is that that's stopping overall. So to end it, stopping the movement overall, true movement. So what I'm saying is that keep in mind all the stuff that these individuals do talk about. Also, keep in mind what's equally important, it's like I've been saying, is what they don't talk about. Now that that's known, you have a really perfect example of that statement in what Owen Benjamin said. Owen Benjamin said he can talk about all this shit in the world. Everything in the world is on the table to talk about. You know, babies, you know, being mutilated and sold on the black market, organs, all this stuff. But he can't talk about race. His word was eugenics. He can talk about everything else out there. All the shit that Owen Benjamin has been talking about on his live stream. All the shit that DITRH has been talking about. But he can't talk about race. He can't talk about eugenics. He can't talk about the power of the system of racism, white supremacy. Those are his words. I just can't talk about it. I just can't. Why? Why? Because you're such a sensitive guy. You're such a sweet, sensitive guy that that's what he was pawning it off. He's like, oh, it just makes my stomach hurt. Oh, you know what? We can talk about clones. We can talk about chimeras. We can talk about everything. We can talk about genocide. We can talk about all this. We can talk about all these things. But I just can't talk about eugenics, man. It's just so. I just can't handle it. And then they just move on. What the fuck? It's like there's entire channels dedicated to exposing that reality exists. But for some reason, you know, people can't talk about that. Fucking silly ass people. You know what? And it's not really silly when these motherfuckers are laughing away and just like privileging away 10 million people who died at their hands. So on that note, I'll leave it there. Until next time, thank you for joining me. Thank you for the support. Peace, love, and harmony.